Today we're going to be talking about the Baha'i faith, which is an even more recent monotheism that has grown into a worldwide religion. The Baha'i faith grows out of Twelver Shi'ism, which started in Persia in the 19th century, or present-day Iran. A man named Sayyid Ali Muhammad claimed to be the Bab, which means gate. This is a term used in Twelver Shi'ism to denote the person in each age who has a special connection to the 12th Imam and can speak for him. He later claimed to actually be the Mahdi, the return of the 12th Imam. If you remember when we talked about Islam, Twelver Shi'ism believes that the 12th Imam became hidden from history and that he will return at a time in the future and usher in an era of peace and paradise, and he's eagerly awaited for in Twelver Shi'ism. So this man claimed to be that. He claimed to be the Mahdi, which is the return of the 12th Imam. During his lifetime, however, he predicted that one would soon come who was even greater than he. He is often seen as a figure analogous to John the Baptist in the Christian tradition, who foretold the coming of Jesus. He gained a following in Persia, but was seen by the Persian authorities as a threat to Islam in that country and was executed in 1850. His followers were known as Babis and continued the movement after his death. One of the Bab's early followers was named Mirza Hussein Ali Nursi. He was imprisoned for his involvement in the Babi movement, and while imprisoned, he supposedly received divine revelations that convinced him that he was the one the Bab had predicted. He was imprisoned for most of his life in the Ottoman Empire as a heretic of Islam, but was eventually released and spent many years speaking to religious leaders and spreading his ideas. His mission was continued with his son and grandson throughout the 20th century. They traveled the world, spread the Baha'i faith, which originated with the ideas of Nursi, and set up the religion as an international organization. Today, the Baha'i faith is the second most widespread religion, meaning that it's in many different parts of the world. There are only about 5 to 6 million Baha'is, but it is one of the fastest growing religions. Baha'is reside in about 200 different countries around the world. According to Baha'is, the universe has no beginning or end. It has always been here and it will always be here. They do not have a specific creation story or story of the first human beings. Throughout the history of humankind, God has sent messengers into the world to help people understand who He is. Each of these messengers are called manifestations of God, and they have helped their communities to better understand the nature of God so that they could live good lives and worship God correctly. Each of these manifestations has been appropriate for its particular time and place, and that's why they have all been different. These messengers are many, and some of them include Abraham, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, and Zoroaster, who's the creator of the Zoroastrian tradition. Each of these messengers were true messengers of God, according to the Baha'i faith, so each of the religions that were built around their teachings are also true. However, they are only part of the whole truth or picture, because humans are incapable of truly understanding God or the reality of the universe. It is not a disagreement that all these religions described God or religion or ethics or rituals very differently, because they are all part of what is called in the Baha'i faith progressive revelation. This means that as humans evolved, so did our understanding of God, and each of these messengers were of course limited by their own culture, their own language, etc. God will continue to send messengers to the world for as long as there are people in the world, and they will continue to change because our own understanding of God and our own culture is also changing. As for personal endings, Baha'is believe that each individual has an eternal and rational soul, which makes us able to attempt to understand God. After we die, our souls live on in an afterlife. Baha'is do talk about a heaven and hell, However, they assert that these are only symbolic words for nearness or distance from God, not really physical locations. They also believe that the soul can continue developing after death, so it could likely draw nearer to God and heaven. Baha'is are intentionally vague on exactly what the afterlife is, because they say that just like God, it is impossible for humans to fully understand what the afterlife will be like, and they don't want people to focus on it too much. They want Baha'is to focus on this life and making conditions better in this world. The Baha'i faith is a monotheistic faith, which is understandable because it developed out of Islam and is still considered a heretical sect of Islam in Iran, the place where it started. They believe that God is one, and also that God is ultimately unknowable by human beings. God can never really be understood by humans because God is God and humans are humans. We are too limited by our language, our intellect, our culture, experiences, etc., to actually know and understand and be able to articulate exactly what God is like. Although God is unknowable, God wants us to try to understand him, so he has sent these many different messengers into the world. These messengers, as I said before, are called manifestations of God in the Baha'i faith because they are believed to be representatives of God for that particular time and community. Each of these messengers, in one sense, preached what is true about God and built true religions around these revelations. They are not true, however, in the sense that they aren't the only truth. They're just one cultural perspective of what God and religion are. No one religion could actually fully have a complete understanding of all this. Baha'is also believe in the unity of all religions. They believe that all religions are true and one in that they are all equally valid attempts to try to understand God, and they are all built around legitimate manifestations of God. So they see all religions as sort of comprising this mosaic of understanding God and how to live a good life. No one religion is completely right, but they are all, in a sense, partially right. They believe in progressive revelation, that as we mature and evolve as humankind, we come to know more and more about God. So we are getting closer to understanding God, although we never truly will. Each of these manifestations have been the most appropriate way to understand God for its time and cultural location. So this also means that when a new messenger comes along, people shouldn't cling too tightly to the old religion, but be open to a new messenger because his or her message might be more appropriate for the current time than the older revelation. This process will continue indefinitely. Baha'is point to the fact that each religion has prophesied a Messiah figure or Messiah-type figure that will come and fix everything. They say that these are all true predictions because every time a new messenger shows up, it's truly the end of the world for the old religion and time to move on in our understanding of God and listen to the new manifestation of God. In the Baha'i faith, there are many sacred writings. It is not just one authoritative book. The writings of the Bab and Baha'u'llah are considered divinely revealed texts because they were manifestations of God who received revelations from God and wrote them down. So theirs are definitely the most important writings for Baha'is. Both of them wrote a lot, so there are many books written by these two figures. The writings of Baha'u'llah's son and grandson, Abdul Baha and Shoghi, are also considered authoritative but not divinely inspired, like the writings of the Bab and Baha'u'llah. Many Baha'is also read the scriptures of other religions because they believe in the unity of all religions. For example, many people who convert to the Baha'i faith will probably continue to read the scriptures of their own original religion if they converted from another religious tradition, in addition to Baha'i texts, since that's something that they're very familiar with. Baha'is believe in the unity of all humankind, that we are all one people, so we should act like it. They often say that we are all citizens of country Earth, so there's this emphasis on unity of all people in the world. So Baha'is work very hard to eradicating racism and other forms of prejudice towards people who are different. They try to minimize cultural, religious, racial, and ethnic differences in sort of a promotion of this idea of unity. They also strongly believe in the equality of men and women, and for its time, when the Baha'i faith started, this was one of the most progressive doctrines, and it was quite controversial, the teachings of equality that they had. One of their main causes is educating women, because this was something that was largely not done at the time the Baha'i faith started in the 19th century. And this continues to be sort of one of their main charities, is building schools for girls in parts of the world where that is not a possibility or is not already there. Baha'is also strongly believe in creating harmony between all religions, since they believe that all religions are essentially one, just different manifestations of the same reality. They don't think that people should ever cling too closely to their religion or believe that their religion is the only way and that they should force conversion on another. Clinging too tightly to the outward form of one's religion as well is also not a good thing in the Baha'i faith. It's very discouraged. They also believe that there should not be disagreement between science and religion. They believe that science and religion are not at odds with each other, and they try to work to convince people from both communities that they are not enemies or mutually exclusive categories. They believe that people should follow God's messengers, but not cling too closely to any one messenger. Baha'is state that if you convert to the Baha'i faith, you don't necessarily have to reject your old religion or the prophet from that religion because they are all equally true in one sense. But you can't cling too closely to it so that you would be closed off to appreciating other religions or other prophets. So you really have to respect religions in the same way, respect other religions in the same way, and not elevate one over another. Baha'is are also not allowed to drink alcohol or gamble. This is probably because the Baha'i faith did develop as a sect of Islam, and Islam also does not allow these two activities. Baha'is are also supposed to be pacifists. They are not supposed to support any war or fight in any war. So it would be against Baha'i ethics for any individual Baha'i to join the army, for example. On a daily basis, Baha'is are required to recite an obligatory prayer whose words are prescribed, much as in the Muslim prayer each day. In addition to the obligatory prayer for the day, Baha'is are encouraged to pray personal prayers to God whenever they want, and usually at least every day. Also, Baha'is will probably read some of the Baha'i scriptures on a daily basis, although they can also read from other religions' sacred texts as well. Baha'is also consider useful work to be a form of worship. They think that everyone should work, and their job should in some way contribute to their society or be helping their society. They consider this kind of work a form of worship to God because you are helping God's creation by having some sort of useful occupation. On a weekly or monthly basis, Baha'is will meet together to have some sort of service, usually quite informal. There will probably be a reading of some sort of scripture, whether it comes from the Baha'i faith or another religious tradition, a sermon or lecture on that scripture and what it teaches people, and then some sort of social time or discussion time. The Baha'i faith does not have a clergy, so the meetings could be led by anyone or more than one member of the community. So there are no Baha'i priests or Baha'i ministers, just different people from the community lead different discussions or different services. Lots of Baha'i meetings are just held at the home of a member of the local community. It's usually only larger cities that have Baha'i centers. The picture here in this slide is a picture of the Baha'i Center in San Diego. So we do have a Baha'i Center here in town. But there's only one Baha'i temple in each continent, in each country. So there's only one in the US, and it's in Illinois. So they have a differentiation between a Baha'i Center, which is just a local place of worship, and a Baha'i temple, of which there's only very few in the world. On a yearly basis, Baha'is follow the Baha'i calendar, which is a unique calendar. It has 19 months, each of 19 days. The 19-day month from March 2nd to the 20th is a time of fasting, very similar to Ramadan. For those 19 days, Baha'is will fast from sunup to sundown, just like in Ramadan as well. Also, at the beginning of each month, they have a feast day, where you gather with other Baha'is and have a big festive community meal. Marriage is encouraged for everyone in the Baha'i faith. Celibacy and remaining single is strongly discouraged. They feel that marriage should be a way of bringing society together and eradicating prejudice. For this reason, they actually strongly encourage interracial marriage because they feel it is one of the best ways to break down racial barriers of prejudice. Also, the Baha'i faith does not have a lot of rituals, as they say that blind adherence to ritual is not a good thing, so they don't really focus on ritual aspects of the religion. They do have some rituals, but because there's the idea that unless you're getting something out of it, you shouldn't do it, it's definitely something that is not strongly encouraged in the Baha'i faith. In general, Baha'is believe in the unity of all humankind, as we mentioned before. A common phrase that they have like I said already, is we are all citizens of planet Earth. It's a common phrase that you hear a lot in Baha'i texts and Baha'i speeches. So we're all united and should in general try to minimize differences between us. Baha'i say that universal equality and peace is one of their main goals. A main part of this is working to achieve equality between men and women, and also eradicating racial and ethnic prejudice. Baha'is also call for the end of extreme wealth and extreme poverty. They say that you cannot be attached to the things of this world, that you have to free your mind from the material world. So very similar to a lot of traditions that we've seen already, seeing material wealth or focus on possessions as an obstacle to spiritual development. But they do believe that extreme wealth and extreme poverty should be eradicated, that there should be limits on how much money people can earn in a society or people can have. In keeping with their idea that all of humankind is one, Baha'is actually want a universal government and universal language. They think that we should get rid of independent national governments so that war will be impossible, that everyone should be ruled by one government, and that there should be one common language that everyone speaks. They say this shouldn't end other languages, but just be one in addition to it so that people can understand each other all over the world. Because of this, Baha'is are big supporters of the UN. They think that the UN is an important first step to having a universal government, and that the UN should be given more power so that they can eventually end individual governments, and the entire world will be ruled by something like the UN, an assembly of leaders, a group of leaders or representatives from each country. And also for the universal language, they don't believe that that language should be chosen from any of the languages that are already spoken in the world, because that would be favoring one culture over another. Oftentimes they've suggested things like languages that have already died out, that are no longer spoken, that should be something that is revived and taught to everyone, so that at least everyone has one language in common with every person in the world. So those are two goals that they definitely want and they see as necessary to eradicating prejudice as well as war and creating world peace. They also believe that there should be universal compulsory education. Everyone around the world, boys and girls, should be required to go to school through high school. College couldn't be mandatory for everyone, but everyone should at least have the opportunity to go to school all the way through high school. Although Baha'is are very focused on the global society and social justice and improving one's society, they actually discourage participation in partisan politics. They don't encourage people to run for office to try to implement these changes, but to change one's society from the ground up. This is probably because they don't really think partisan politics or national governments are a good thing, and they want them replaced one day with a universal governing body. So it would not be very likely to see a member of the Baha'i faith running for office, even if it's just local office. They're discouraged from doing that. In terms of authority, Baha'is don't have an official clergy, but they do have elected leaders. There is something called the Universal House of Justice, and that is the top governing body of worldwide Baha'is. It is located in Haifa, just outside of Jerusalem in Israel. The House of Justice has the ability to make certain decisions regarding the international Baha'i community, and they publish sort of a small book or a pamphlet each year that lists the top priorities for Baha'is for that year. Basically what social justice issues they feel are very important for our current world, our current situation. Local and national Baha'i communities also elect local assemblies of 9 people to run that community, although it's not supposed to be a clergy, like a religious leadership, just an administrative type of leadership.